So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be back in Kuala Lumpur. Last time I was there, it was in 2018, 5 years ago. So my pleasure is really big today to be here. So indeed, I'm going to present our worldwide fiber panorama and a focus on NG-PON telco strategy. Next. What are today first the trend in terms of fiber worldwide? Next. So today we have three families, what we call super fast broadband, that can provide 100 meg, 200 meg and more. Is fiber to the home, fiber to the building, according to the definition of the FCGA Alliance worldwide. It's fiber to the curb plus copper and DSL. And finally, it is also DOCSIS 3.0 or 3.1 deployed. The news is that today, in these three families of technology, fiber to the home represents 77% of the subscription worldwide. It is followed by VDSL, which is downloading 9%, and then we have coax at 14%. Next. Today, we have a total worldwide of more than 1 billion FTTX subscribers at June 2022. And the fact you see here, for each family of technology, where it's happening. If you focus first on fiber to the home or fiber to the building, well, the vast majority of those subscribers, thanks to China, has to be said, 77% of those subscribers are here in the APAC region. Then Europe is standing on the second position with 12%. If we look at VDSL, nearly 100 million subscribers, Europe has still a strong position with 64% of subscribers being there, thanks to the early deployment of players like Dutch Telecom or BT, for example. And then North America, thanks to the deployment of AT&T, for example, is sitting with 14%. Finally, if we look at the cable guys, DOCSIS 3.0 and 3.1, because of the main MSOs being in the US, more than 50% of those subscribers are in the US, and this is followed by Europe, 24%, because of the force of the MSOs in Benelux or the UK, for example. Next. Next. If we look now at the worldwide FTTH players, you have here the top 10 FTTH players worldwide. With no surprise, on the podium, we have three China-based operators. The first worldwide being China Mobile, when you know that China Mobile was a mobile-only operator, I would say 10 years ago. Now they have more than 229 million subscribers, followed by China Telecom and China Unicom. So you see here that the majority of the leaders for fiber to the home are sitting here in the Asia-Pacific region, especially including the pioneers like NTT or KT. We have also what we call in US a category of players. Beside the big telcos in US, we have hundreds, thousands of little operators. And when we sum up the US municipalities and small ISP, you have more than 19 million subscribers. Push. And furthermore, also, if we are looking at telcos who are deploying fiber not only in their domestic market, but also outside the domestic market, you find players like Orange, which is present not only in France, but also in Spain, in Poland, and in Western Africa also. And of course, you find also with more than 14 million Telefonica of Spain, which is not only present in Spain, but also in Latin America with countries such as Brazil, Argentina, Peru, or Chile. Next. Let's focus now what's happening here in the zone with an update at June 2022. Well, if we look at those 3 different platforms deployed here in the Asia-Pacific region, you see that you have a lot of blue. Blue means fiber to the home or fiber to the building. So this is massively this kind of technology chosen. There's a little difference if we look at India or Australia, for example. Today, it is clearly that this fiber to the home is a clear shift from the market to this kind of technology. It has to be pointed out also that here in the zone, 68% of the total FTTX subscribers are in China. Indeed, in terms of volume, the 3 leaders in the zone are China, Japan, and South Korea. And even if those markets are quite mature, you can see there is still a growth, slow, but still a growth in terms of subscribers and in terms of homes passed for those 3 countries. Next. In terms of home passed, again, the volume is, of course, in the camp of China with 500 million home passed over there. You see here what are the more dynamic market, I would say, in terms of growth, like Philippines, for example, Australia or Indonesia. And after, in terms of volume, it means during 1 year, how many homes passed have been deployed in the country. No surprise here with the ranking being there. We have to mention also Philippines being number 2, or India now starting to be visible in terms of new homes passed per year. This has been mentioned already this morning, but this is a ratio quite interesting. It's called the penetration rate to measure the commercial success of fiber rollout. You see here in the region, there is, of course, champions, most of the time being the pioneers of fiber rollout, like Japan, South Korea, or also Australia with more than 60 or 90%. There is also the new markets, like India, for example. And here in the Southeast Asia, as I mentioned this morning, with the exception of Singapore being very high in terms of fiber adoption, when Malaysia is doing quite well with 58% in terms of penetration. It is higher than neighborhood countries like Thailand, 35%, Philippines, 23%, or Indonesia, 27%. Next. We are also showing here the ranking, measuring the penetration rate. It means the ratio of subscribers to fiber in a country reported to the total number of households in the country. So you have 4 countries in the zone with a penetration rate of more than 80%, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, and South Korea. And then you have a part of the countries between 20 and 80%. Here also Malaysia is sitting right, I would say, near to the middle with a penetration rate of 37% in terms of fiber. If we look at the global ranking, which is published every year during the FTTH Council Europe conference. This is the last edition that has been published in September 2021. I mention this because you see that in the top 3, we have 2 countries from Asia-Pacific region, with Singapore being number 2 and China being number 3. And you have here also in the list here Malaysia being at 32% in terms of penetration rate. So this is the first half, I would say, of the global ranking. It is a good sign for Malaysia. It's all the countries with more than 25% of penetration. There is after other countries lagging behind, I would say, in terms of penetration rate. Even a large country of the European economy like Germany or the UK, which are at the beginning of the fiber rollout, as you know, are today far below 10% in terms of penetration rate. Next. So this was my presentation concerning the fiber trends worldwide. Next. Now I would like to share with you insights for one of the last market study we did about NG-PON technology. Indeed, we are today at the moment where many telcos shift from the traditional GPON to the next GPON technology. You see here what are the families in terms of NG-PON. Besides GPON, there is also, of course, XGS-PON, which is a 10 GPON symmetrical technology, 2.5 on return or 10 gigabit on return. There is one also called NG-PON2 or TWDM-PON, which is proposing 4 lambdas of 10 gigabit each. Then we have the camp of 25 GPON, proposing 25 down or 10 up or 20, 25 gigabit downstream, and a 50 GPON, proposing also a version of 50 GPON being symmetrical. Next. Network equipment vendors are today positioned in this battle of NG-PON. In terms of the active telcos, the active vendors, of course, there is a clear positioning in different camps. I will follow on this of Huawei and Nokia. And then we have all the ecosystem being positioned on the NG-PON, from the leading OLT, ONU provider to the chipset provider, to the hardware manufacturer, and also one small cell hardware provider that we are mentioning here. Of course, Huawei and ZTE, I would say the Chinese vendor, are more today pushing for 50 GPON technology. That could be the choice of the telco in China. We see XGS-PON being deployed in the new market, starting from scratch to fiber, especially in Europe, in the UK or Germany. Nokia is more here promoting the 25 GPON, but also looking at 50G for the future. And there is a very few players positioned on NG-PON2, like Atran or Calix, for example. Next. In terms of telcos, so this is what I was seeing. Today we have a vast adoption of XGS-PON. We have a coexistence in the combo universal blades for doing classic GPON and XGS-PON. And beyond the XGS-PON, we have different camps looking at 25 GPON or 50 GPON. In the camp of 50 GPON, it is driven by the Chinese operator. Turkcell also is more in this camp, or Orange and Telefonica are more testing, I would say, this solution without taking a strong decision. 25 GPON, except the position of Proximus in Europe, is more being adopted in the US at the moment with players such as AT&T or Frontier. Next. If we look now at different families of technology, we can start with 10 GPON. It is clear that we believe that 10 GPON will dominate in the medium term. You see here the big players being positioned in terms of vendors, but also in terms of telcos today. The fact that GPON and 10 GPON wavelength do not overlap is a strong advantage for this technology. And some user cases include VR gaming and enterprise connection. are clearly driving the 10G-PON adoption, including also the surge of traffic, as we have seen this morning with Telecom Malaysia during the COVID period, are pushing today players that have initially deployed GPON or starting to deploy fiber to go directly with 10G-PON, especially today where the cost of ONT and OLT are going down for this choice of technology. Next. NG-PON 2 is still a curiosity, I would say. There is only one big player today pushing still for NG-PON 2. It's Verizon in the US. They believe that this can coexist with EGS-PON and NG-PON 2. There is a willingness of Verizon to have a different wavelength running on a PON tree to address different markets, residential, enterprise, and small cells and cell sites. This is the main characteristic willingness of Verizon. There is today only, to my knowledge, two vendors that are still supporting this choice, all being US vendors. It's Actran and Calix Ericsson team that are pushing again with Verizon to this kind of choice, but there is doubt that this technology will take rise because of the cost of the optics linked to this technology. If we look now at 25G-PON, it is clearly Nokia, which is the major promoter. There is key players involved in what they call the 25GS-PON MSA ecosystem. We are quite numerous, as you can see. The main weakness of 25G-PON is that there is not a standard today for this technology. The force is that the cost of the ONT in the short term should also decrease for this kind of choice, and there is no change being required in the outside plan. This 25G-PON could be the choice for premium services, especially addressing enterprise services, and also for having a priority of bandwidth addressing the 5G transport and both sides. Next. The strategy of Nokia, for example, in this technology, they are pushing 25G-PON, but also pushing on the years to come 50G and demonstrating 100G-PON. It's also a combo approach, saying that 25G-PON do not require dedicated OLTs or different splitters from migration from EGS-PON, for example, and putting also on the table that it is today widely supported by more than 50 companies. The main weakness, I repeat, is the fact that there is not yet a standard for this 25G-PON, but of course the cost should be less important than the 50G-PON at the beginning. Also, they demonstrate that today, if you deploy a 25G-PON compared to a classical G-PON, you can have a break-even in 5 years down from 7, so you can gain 2 years in terms of break-even. In terms of the services you will distinguish, especially by residential, enterprise, and mobile backhaul. Finally, for 50G-PON, well, if we look at the supporters of 25G-PON, you see, of course, the Chinese telco, but you see also some key operator being here on the league. The main force compared to 25G-PON is that the 50G-PON standard has been approved some time ago in September 2021. He can also present the reuse of existing 10G-PON ODN, which is clearly a force. There are still adopt also on the price of some parts of optics for this 50G-PON. The hope of the promoters of 50G-PON is that the choice of the big Chinese telcos in terms of volume will allow to have a decrease of this technology in the 2 years to come. Next. Huawei is the main promoter of this technology. They believe that the bandwidth must be upgraded by 4+ times in the 6-7 years. So this is obeying to this strategy. They are pushing also in terms of adoption from the Chinese telco to present a certain volume of adoption. They believe that this 50G-PON should be adopted starting in 2023, so this year, being in line with the ITU standard that is already existing. The main force of 50G-PON is a clear technology to address the different backhaul from the small cell backhaul that should be more important, especially with the millimeter waves will be deployed in certain countries. 5G, of course, mobile backhaul is at the heart for mobile backhaul, but also for front haul. And also pushing for some Wi-Fi at some open zones. They call Wi-Fi at campus, for example. One telco, and not a small one, is Telefonica, being today in the camp of 50G-PON. You know that, as I saw before, Telefonica is the first fiber telco in Europe and Latin America. They believe that 50G-PON can represent an advantage in terms of competition in the midterm. Of course, it will allow also, as they are an integrated operator, to address clearly their mobile backhaul need, and they are listing some key use case being justifying 50G-PON, like gaming 8K, for example, or intelligence campuses. So this is today one of the promoter of 50G-PON when we look at the key telcos worldwide. Next. So to conclude, we believe at IDAT that there will be a journey to NG-PON. Finally, today 10G-PON is quite mature, so it will happen at least 1 year more. Up to 2024, and between the migration from 10G-PON to 50G-PON, we believe that there is a place for 25G-PON in the 3 or 4 years to come in terms of transition to 50G-PON, because of the cost being less important of 25G-PON, and because also of the volume that should be deployed starting first by the US and some European operator. Then after, with the volume coming from China, we believe that 50G-PON should come with the peak being in 2027 or 2028. So this is basically what we forecast in terms of NG-PON tendencies. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present this. I want here also to share with you that at IDAT we are publishing 70 market reports and data set every year. So tracking, this is only the publication tracking fiber to the home, fiber to the X technology. So if you want to know more, don't hesitate to go on our website or to contact me. Finally, to conclude, I was there a few years ago presenting my son in Kuala Lumpur 2018, Jules, that was born at the August 2016. He was asking for fiber for years, and finally today, Jules is very happy because we have fiber at home, so he can enjoy fiber every day. Thank you very much.